rising to the challenge, I put out and said, no, we're going to shave off a lot of time. I want a camera in every single train so people feel secure and our law enforcement can reach and find and prosecute the lawbreakers. So we made some real progress there as well. Now, subway crime now is down 16% compared to 2019. Why do I go back to 2019? I subtracted out the higher years of the pandemic because otherwise this would be a lot bigger drop. But I want to deal in realities. What was the world like before the pandemic when people were not so anxious about going on the subway? We are now down 16% compared to 2019. And just from last year, when we'd already started seeing dramatic downward trends, we're still 11% lower than last year at this time. So ridership continues to rise, ticking up 7% year over year. But I'll say this. I, more than anyone, know there's still more work to do. Just last week, a man was stabbed to death on the 5 train, right in the middle of rush hour. A galling attack that shocked so many riders. That's proof. That's proof we still have more work to do. I acknowledge that. And in January, I came here and I outlined a plan to ramp up our efforts. I vow to fund the state funding for the first time in history, not just MTA police, not just state police, but funding the MTA, picking up the cost of the MTA so there's two NYPD police officers on every overnight train. When you see the police officers, NYPD on those overnight trains starting at 9 o'clock at night till 6 a.m., that is the New York State taxpayers working hard to make sure that this lifeline of our economic heartbeat is still viable and thriving. So we did that. We also vowed to make more security upgrades. And I vowed to end the insanity of violent criminals getting off with crimes because of technicalities, whether it happens on the subway or happens on our streets. And I vowed to keep people who have severe mental health problems, who are in our subways, on our streets. I said we vowed to get them off these city streets and subway stations and in our trains and get them into a hospital bed where they can get some help. I thought it was cruel to abandon them. Yes, they have civil rights, of course they do, but some people don't have the mental capacity to make decisions for their own health and well-being. How do we abandon them? That's not what a civilized society does, and we said no more. And I'm proud to say with our new budget securely in place, almost done, we delivered on these promises. And when it comes to public safety, I refuse to back down, absolutely refuse to back down. So let me break down what we accomplished. First, an additional $45 million for Joint Task Force Empire Shield. That's our National Guard. We want to make sure they're funded and can remain here. This is the elite unit that protects New York City, including our subways. The National Guard members you see are an important part of that. $77 million in this year's budget to make sure we can continue funding those NYPD on the overnight trains. These officers really are the unsung heroes. Those late night rides have to be stressful. Sometimes you walk into a car and you don't know the unknown. It's a frightening dynamic, and I want to thank them because they're protecting the nurses and doctors who are on the midnight shift, the cooks and bartenders who clock out late, and all the people who have to rise before the sun, our construction workers, our bakers, our baristas. These are the people who keep our city running, and we must keep them safe. We also, as I mentioned, are taking the steps to take care of those languishing with mental health problems. And I will say this, we're going to make a difference in their lives. We're going to make sure they get the help they need, but we couldn't do it up until now. Here's why. Because we didn't have the system in place to care for them. Because of decades of disinvestment in our system, our healthcare system, our mental health system, that we didn't have enough beds. We didn't have enough practitioners. We didn't have enough people with long-term strategies and supportive housing. And I'm so proud after the first $1 billion investment I made back when I was brand new governor, we are now positioned to be able to give these people the help they need. That's why we can welcome them in and take good care of them. We're also strengthening Kendra's law to ensure those with serious mental illness receive consistent treatment in the community so they don't fall between the cracks. Also investing $30 million in our homeless outreach teams, these safe option support teams, My God, they're doing God's work every single day. You see them, I've come to thank them. And they're so compassionate, and they don't give up on anybody. They believe that everybody has value, and they want to help them achieve their full potential, despite how hard life has been for them. These are compassionate public servants who've helped over 1,000 New Yorkers escape lives on the street and find, get this, permanent housing. 1,000 people who are long-term chronically homeless right here now have a home to call and make it sure it's a safe place for them to rest their heads at night. Because you know what? It's not just about public safety for all of us. It's about human dignity and giving people what they deserve. As I mentioned, we reformed our criminal justice laws because, while a lot of people aren't quite sure what discovery laws are, and that's okay, what happens under changes that were made back in 2019, I will say this, and I've said this from the beginning, there were many changes that were necessary. The system was absolutely skewed against the defendants, and that was unfair. But we also know that the pendulum has swung way too far, and now the defense lawyers are able to lie in wait, literally the night before a case is supposed to be presented, and raise objections that a judge must say, based on the law, you must have this case dismissed now because the clock has run out. Or if there's minor technicalities, and the cases are legendary, you hear the reasons that cases are thrown out, whether it's a crime in the subway or domestic violence incidents. We want to make sure that people do not escape because of a senseless loophole that we have now fixed. That's how you start making people safer. That's how you hold people accountable. And if you wear a mask to hide your identity while you're committing a crime, you'll face an additional charge. That's important because we've seen in the subway people masking themselves, trying to evade the cameras that we put in place. But if you're hiding under a mask, how are our police supposed to identify you and make sure you don't hurt somebody else the next day? This is another force for ensuring that we have public safety. But also, here's the music to Jano's ears. We are fully funding the $68 billion capital plan. And I want to thank the leaders in the legislature for working hard with me. It's been an interesting, always interesting process. But we're also making sure through that we're also upgrading $1 billion more in crucial physical security upgrades. So what we're going to do, we'll have platform barriers at 100 additional stations, LED lighting, I want them brighter, I want people to see. We'll also continue swapping out the aging turnstiles. Guess what? Ones that are hard to evade, ones you can't hurdle over or crawl under. So we're going to be getting those out there, so those shameless ferry evaders, and everybody's doing this, who create unnecessary stress and chaos for the other riders who are actually doing what they're supposed to do. So we're going to stop them as well. We're also going to make sure the MTA, we're fully funding their repairs. And something that's near and dear to my heart, since I proposed it a few years ago, is to do the Interborough Express once and for all. The money is there, because as much as we love Manhattan, people who are trying to go from Brooklyn to Queens should not have to make a stop here first. Let's inject some common sense into our residents' lives and let them have the quality of life they deserve and less time traveling from one borough to another. Making stations ADA accessible and enhancing service to and from the Hudson Valley. So we're going to continue with these goals, and I'm always looking forward to partnering with the MTA as we go forth for the years ahead to make good on all these financial commitments. But mark my words, I will do everything in my power to ensure that the people of this city and this state are safe, and I'll put the investments where they need to go. I'll make the changes in the law where necessary, because we won't stop until every single person has what they deserve, the right to be safe in their homes, in their communities, and on our subways. Thank you very much. Let me hand this now over to Jano Lieber, the Chairman and CEO of the MTA.
Governor, you said it all, but more important, you did it all. You did it all for 6 million people who depend on this MTA system to get to work, to get to school, to get to health care every day. More people than the National Aviation System carries every day by a lot. And you've changed their lives in terms of the transportation piece, but as we're here to talk about today, you've altered the safety equation and their confidence of safety in the system we hope will follow. We know we have a long way to go, you said it right, but as the numbers change and as the experience changes, people's minds and hearts, we hope, will follow, and that sense of safety that is so important to being able to really take advantage of New York needs to be restored. Let me just say, the MTA has been excited and hugely supportive of what you've done in, perhaps the most high-profile and controversial issue, which is the discovery law changes. We have people who are, as you say, recidivists, who commit crimes in the MTA system, and they do harm to our workers and to our riders, and they're back again and again. And part of that is the technicalities of the discovery law. We all know it, which is why you were joined by the DAs in saying, we got to change this law. And now we're doing it, and we are thrilled to support you in that area. Your commitment to deploying police officers on the overnights. Every rider, we do surveys all the time at the MTA. They're not polls, they're actual rider surveys. And what every demographic, every income level, every neighborhood, every rider group tells us is, I want to see more cops. And you know when they want to see more cops, especially? On the overnight, when there are a little fewer people there and they feel a little more at risk. And lo and behold, we are seeing surges in ridership, and part of that is attributable to the increased sense of safety that your investment in police presence, which is especially dramatic on the overnight when you see a cop on the train. And we're seeing ridership up this year, 8% this year. Now, some people want to ascribe that all to congestion pricing, but if you look at the numbers, there are 130,000 people who are driving. If we're getting a slice of those folks onto subways and buses and commuter rail, that's great, but that's not what's driving the MTA growth in ridership. It's the economic comeback of the city, which transit was key to, and your investments in safety. And we're having, I just got to echo one thing you said. I don't want to go on too long, is the cameras. The cameras now, we have an unbelievable camera system. We have 130,000 cameras in the system, but only because of your investment. In a single year were we able to make sure every subway train, no matter how old it is, now has 2 cameras on it, 2 cameras on every train. And that horrible incident that took place, God forbid, the first homicide of the year in the MTA system, but we had video on the train, the cops had video on the platform, they had video at the turnstile, and that's why that assailant knew he had to turn himself in, because it was all over, the cops were onto it. We've moved station agents out of the booths, where not only are they helping riders to navigate the system, but they are functioning in tandem with NYPD and your officers as eyes and ears for safety and providing that sense of presence. We have hundreds of unarmed guards at the turnstiles and at the exit gates who have helped achieve what you've done, what we've done together, which is a 30% reduction since last summer in fare evasion on subways. And fare evasion isn't just an economic issue. That's a morale issue. That's at the gate, at the door to this system, you want to feel like it's safe and it is a place where people follow the rules and you have some confidence in it, and you helped us to accomplish this. And then you talked about the mental health component. That is the thing that is having a disproportionate impact on the rider's sense of safety in the system. It's not a secret. That population is having a disproportionate impact on the sense of safety and order in all of our public spaces, and they need to be helped and into treatment. And with your changes to the involuntary commitment law, we have confidence that that will change. So you talked about this, the results. The numbers are down 16% versus where we were before COVID. 30% fewer attacks on our employees, the public servants who are making the system operate. Now, we do have, you keep saying it exactly right, we have a ways to go to get New Yorkers' confidence in in the subway safety and in transit safety back. But boy, have we made strides, and boy, are we making strides. And I have to, tip of the hat to your leadership in this area and so many others. Thank you, Governor, and thank you on behalf of the riders.
Thank you, Governor. Who's calling the questions?
Kemper's here.
Okay.
Questions, yeah.
Is Chief Kemper supposed to speak?
Some of the same material.
Okay. Did you want to say anything? You have anything? Okay, go ahead.
Good morning. You heard a lot about the cameras. You're going to hear a little more from me also in my remarks. And the reason being is because coming from a law enforcement executive, they're gold. And they pay dividends every day. And law enforcement relies upon them. But good morning and welcome to Grand Central Station, where every day countless New Yorkers and visitors pass through here on the way to work, the way to school, and on the way to see all that this city has to offer. Mass transit is the lifeblood of New York City, and this administration, under Governor Hochul's leadership, has been clear from day one that the safety of New Yorkers, especially our commuters, remains our top priority. In my former role leading the men and women of the NYPD's Transit Bureau, I had the unique privilege, a front row seat, if you will, to see firsthand the efforts and the commitment between Albany and City Hall towards a safe mass transit system. It was under the governor's and chairman leader's leadership that we were able to deliver a camera network that didn't just cover every subway station, but a camera system that now covers every subway car. Again, 100% of all subway cars in the New York City subway system are outfitted with cameras. And that worthy investment has already paid countless dividends, offering tremendous investigative value to our law enforcement partners, while instilling public confidence and acting as a deterrent to would-be criminals. Beyond this smart and highly effective investment, this administration has done so much more, including the support, which was mentioned by the chairman and the governor, and the funding for additional NYPD deployments on trains, specifically during the overnight hours, a welcomed and reassuring presence for our riders during their overnight journeys. These investments, among others, along with the hard work of the men and women of the NYPD and the MTA Police Department, translated into a promising reduction in subway crime this year. NYPD data shows that overall crime for the first quarter of this year was down 18.1% versus first quarter 2024. In fact, overall crime for Q1 2025 was at its second lowest level in recorded history, surpassed only by the pandemic year of 2021. This significant achievement includes the lowest number of first quarter robberies since subway crime was recorded, down 25% versus last year, down 36% versus 2023, and down a staggering 84% versus 1997, when I wore the uniform of an NYPD sergeant. The MTA has also made strides when it comes to safety infrastructure under this administration. To name just a few, and was mentioned, updated and brighter lighting for our stations, the installation of safety barriers on platforms, modifications to turnstiles to reduce fare evasion. And we have taken steps to improve the safety of our workforce, as the chairman mentioned, such as our commitment to install video cameras in every conductor cab, as well as the chairman's hiring of the MTA's first ever criminal justice advocate. I've often said that although the police are the most visible part of the criminal justice system, there are other stakeholders involved whose actions and decisions have far-reaching impact on public safety. It's so true. There must be meaningful consequences that hold criminals responsible for their actions. For without consequences, where is the deterrence? And where is the deterrence for our crime victims? Mechanisms ensuring an accused one's rights are respected must be rooted in common sense and not burdened by technicalities or unrealistic time frame for prosecutors. That's why the governor's push to change discovery laws is so important to the mission of advancing public safety. Thank you. And look, I can go on and on. There's not enough time. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. But know this, everyone listening, as encouraging as the crime statistics are, and they are, we remain focused, recognizing our work is far from finished. But here we are yet again at Grand Central Station, collectively as a team, to reaffirm our commitment to the safety and prosperity of all. Thank you.
All right, questions. We're tight on time here. We're going to have one for those we can get to. Let's go to Marcia Kramer, CBS 2. Marcia.
This is a question for both the governor and Jano. It has to do with congestion pricing. As you know, the Federal Transportation Secretary has said that if the cameras aren't turned off by May 21st, he's going to cut funds to transportation for New York and for the MTA. What plans are you making about the contingency if he actually follows through with his threats?
Let me address this in a couple of ways, and I'll let Jano wrap up. I don't know why, with all the responsibilities that the Secretary of Transportation has, including preventing plane and helicopter crashes, that's under his jurisdiction, that they're so focused on a locality's decision, a city and a state that want to control their own traffic. I mean, they talk about states' rights. This is our right to make decisions on how we want to manage the flow of traffic, but also execute on our priorities, which is reduce congestion in a city that is critically important to the economic health, not just of New York, but the nation. And it's working. So as more time goes on, we are able to show them more data that counters their initial perceptions that this is a place of lawlessness, that crime is out of control, that the cost is stifling development and hurting everybody. Their perception is wrong, so we're going to continue trying our very best to open their eyes to the reality that congestion pricing is working. Traffic is down, congestion is down, and revenues are up. And the cameras are staying on. I've said it month after month after month, and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Come sit with us, look at the data, see how impactful this has been, probably beyond anyone's wildest expectations. I was walking the streets of New York again yesterday, and another woman came up to me and she says, I thought I was going to hate congestion pricing, but I actually like it now. I think that's the view of a lot of people, even people coming in from New Jersey who had a lot of hair on fire moments over this and making us spend money in court that we all won rather handily. And now they're telling me my ride is 15 minutes shorter, it's 20 minutes shorter, it's 30 minutes shorter. More people are coming in from the suburbs to go to Broadway and the restaurants because it's not such a hassle. The cab drivers and the Uber drivers who are deathly afraid of this said, wait a minute, I'm actually making more money because the lack of traffic means that I can get around faster and get more fares. So what I'm going to do, and be as patient as I can, is to continue to show the data, explain to them why this is working, and why they should really focus on other priorities that I would think that the United States Secretary of Transportation ought to be worrying about. Yeah.
And the governor said it all. All I would add is, Marcia, we're confident that as a legal matter, they can't use coercive measures to resolve something that's in front of the courts. So let's let it be resolved by the courts. We're confident we're going to continue to win. As I say, we've won in every court east of the Mississippi, and let's let it be resolved that way rather than them trying to coerce something with threats about money and otherwise. They can't do that, and we're sure that the courts will back us up on that.
All right, no, we got to move on. Next question is Stephanos Chen down there.
We're going to win in court. We're going to win in court.
The New York Times.
Hi, Governor Hochul and Jano. Thank you for this. The question, Governor Hochul, is with the Sarah down here.
Okay.
The plan is fully funded, but there is the question of the $3 billion that the MTA is expected to put together through savings There are a few options for that, but have you discussed with the MTA where that likely is to come from, is part one. And quickly, a second question is, in your address, you mentioned also that there's a potential to put mental health facilities in the subway and underground. Could you just elaborate on whether that is something you're going to pursue?
Right. On the first question, we're not saying find $3 billion in savings. It turns out that $150 million in savings can be bonded and leveraged for $3 billion more in improvements. And I am very confident, under Jan Oliver's leadership, as we've had to do before, tighten the belts, find efficiency, and we're going to continue seeing more revenues come in as our fare evasion strategies are unfolded and in every station. So those are the areas where we feel confident they'll be able to do this as they've done before. It's a shared sacrifice. Everybody has to give here because the alternative is unfathomable, not to have a fully functioning, funded, efficient system to carry 6 million people a day. It's just not an option. Second part of the question?
The question of whether or not you support putting mental health facilities.
No. These were just little welcome centers, as we have people who have been here for many, many years, in order to persuade them to leave. And these are not the ones that would be covered under our new law. Our new law is different. It covers people who already covered people who are in risk of doing harm to themselves or others. Automatically, they can be taken to a hospital and evaluated. What we've added now is a new category of people who don't have the mental capacity to take care of their own personal needs, whether it's making sure they're taking medication, whether it's making sure that they're getting food, making sure that they're getting, clean clothes and take it. So this is someone who clearly demonstrates they do not have the mental capacity to do this. So this is a smaller subset. There are others that we want to have communications with, and it's all about relationship building. And I've seen this in person. That's how we got 1,000 people, and some of them had been living on the streets for 5, 6, 7 years. They had to develop a relationship, so we're going to put in some welcome centers, let people have a place to go to, get warmed up, take care of them, and then be persuasive in saying, now, we have a better option for you. Let's get you evaluated, let's get you care, let's get you medication, and we'll keep an eye on your recovery once you've been discharged from the assistance we're providing you. So I don't want to have a one broad covers everybody, because everybody is unique and has a different reason and why they're here. We're not talking about just people who are homeless, who find themselves on the streets. We're not talking about someone who just doesn't wash their clothes. I want to make sure that people know we're talking about people who do not have the mental capacity to take care of themselves, but we also know that many of them are here, and we want to be able to greet them where they are and manage this and get them to move on.
And those facilities would be
Do you know exactly where they're going to be, Jana? Okay. There's just going to be a few of them in places where our support teams can gather and build reinforcements and also go out and plan their strategies. So they have a centralized place to go to.
All right, moving on, Governor, if we could direct you to the Loge section back there. That's Newton Jones Burkett III from Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Tim, thank you. To Chief Kemper and to the governor, if you would weigh in on this also. As I recall, felony assaults have remained stubbornly high. I'm wondering where you are with respect to felony assaults. And as I recall, the victims of felony assaults have been police officers and transit workers largely. So where are we on those numbers, and how are you addressing that category in particular?
I just say that you're absolutely right, Newt, that the growth in felony assaults, which we've brought down, we've pushed that back. It was growing at a much faster rate. A lot of it is attributable, we just got to be honest. We're doing more enforcement. The NYPD is doing more enforcement, and there are more interactions that result in somebody who got stopped for fare evasion, for example, whacking a cop, or even worse. That is a big driver of what we're doing, and we want to protect our transit workers, and the assaults on transit workers are down 30%. So we are pushing back hard against those two stubbornly high numbers, and I think we're making progress. But with the governor's discovery changes, this is a category of crime that is especially relevant in that discovery change, because if somebody attacks a police officer, it's supposed to be a felony. But frequently it's being knocked down or even let go because of this problem of the technicalities that governor's discovery initiative addresses. So we believe that the people who commit those types of crimes are going to see more consequences as a result of the law. That's what we're shooting for.
All right, let's move on.
I just want to say on that, we don't want anyone to harm our police officers, our law enforcement. They put themselves at risk every single day. And also our transit workers, conductors who've been assaulted. We know the stories. Last year, I worked hard to get the law changed so there's enhanced penalties for someone who assaults an individual who works for the MTA, these people who are in exposed positions. So we'll see more cases brought on that. But Jano's absolutely right that it's the volume of police officers, so the number of police officers there's going to be higher risk. But if you subtract that increase in that number out, that says the overall number related to commuters is lower. And we need to be honest in our characterization of the statistics.
Yeah, we'll get you the number, Newt. I think it's about 30% of the assaults are against police officers. We'll get you the number. Bernadette Hogan is here in New York City from New York One.
I sure am. Governor, with the mask penalties, do you think that the MTA should start recording and releasing those statistics to see, how bad that problem is in the system? And also, do you agree that New York should legalize assisted suicide as the Assembly passed that bill a couple days ago?
Bernadette, I'm going to give you an answer you've been hearing from me for 3.5 years. The legislature acts. They pass it in both bodies. I have until the end of December to assess it, evaluate all their decisions. And as customary, they drop about 800 to 1,000 bills on my desk in June every year. I take the time necessary to evaluate, and as you know, I never talk about what I'm going to do until I do it. I need the time to process. I spent a lot more time on bills over that 6-month period because it's important, because when I put my signature on a bill or a veto pen is brought out, it has bigger consequences. So I'm aware of that weight, and that's why I'm not prepared to give an answer at this time, but all will tell. What was the other half?
On the mask wearing, do you think that the MTA should start recording this?
Recording what?
For people that commit a crime or are menacing, and anybody that would fall under this new blanket, if you're wearing a mask and you're menacing, right? That's not a stat, I don't believe, that's recorded or provided.
Oh, you're talking about calculating? So you'll see the underlying crime has to be committed, and these are people that this is an enhancement to an underlying crime. So those crime statistics will be calculated, and then we'll see the results of whether or not there's an enhancement brought by the DAs. The DAs would make the determination on whether or not it fits the law.
So we're not going to see that figure. You're not going to say, hey, this is how bad it's been in the system.
Jano, do you want to add that statistic to your numbers? I think we'll certainly make available. It's part of it will be part of a charge that the DAs will determine based on evidence that somebody wore a mask, rather than, it's not a separate act. It's part of the felony crime or the misdemeanor crime.
Okay, and I just want to be clear, this is for a person wearing a mask, covering or otherwise obscures their face completely or partially for no legitimate purpose with the intent to prevent their identification or apprehension in the arrest of such a crime. So we can talk about how we want to characterize that going forward.
All right, next up, right next door, Ry Rivard is from Politico. Ry?
Governor, you talked about the population you're focused on with involuntary commitment, but could you talk a little bit more in detail about how that will work?
Yes, we're going to make sure that there's training, and I work with the legislature to make sure that we have, whenever possible, that the determination is made by a mental health professional or a healthcare professional. Now, in the city of New York, that is often customary because when you think about an incident, the NYPD will more likely than not be calling an ambulance, EMT, to come, and they will be able to help make that assessment. That's not the practice across the state in smaller communities where it's volunteer firefighters, volunteer EMT, but in a city like New York, the expectation is, I think our law says, whenever practicable, which is customary here, that that it's not just law enforcement making the determination, it is also a healthcare professional. Then that person will be transported to a hospital, and you need not one but two healthcare professionals to make the determination that this person would benefit from time in the hospital to get the diagnosis and the treatment plan. And that's what we're hoping for. But there's a lot of give and take with the legislature to make sure that there are no abuses of people's rights. We're very sensitive to that. But also, I think we have a right to take care of people and an obligation to take care of people. That is our responsibility. and the other people who are also sometimes victims of assaults by someone who's in the throes of a mental health episode, who can't control their behavior. They shouldn't be victimized either. So I think this is a strategy that's going to result in healthier New Yorkers, more people getting the care they need from a compassionate system, but ultimately making our streets and subways safer as well.
All right, we got time for a couple more. Juliet Papa there, 10-10 wins on 92.3. Juliet.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you. So just to follow up on that, these welcome centers, are they including beds?
No.
Like, no. Okay.
This
So is
this
that just for like a 24-hour
It's an intake, it's a conversation you can have with someone and talk to them about services that are available to them and how to get them the help they need. Just to take them out of the mainstream so you don't have to have this conversation with thousands of commuters around,
Right.
dial down the stress of it for everybody and have it in a place where you can have more positive outcomes.
And also, will you be adding more mental health teams to the system?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. That's part of the strategy. We're working on the numbers right now. Okay.
All right, let's go to Evan Simcoe Bednarski right there in the center from the New York
Yeah, we've already
Daily
quadrupled the
News.
number of teams, which is how we got from, now it's tracking the numbers like a hawk. First time we announced this, a couple of hundred people, we got 500 people. We hit 1,000 people that were long-term homeless in our subways. They're in a far better place right now, and I feel good about that.
Good morning, Governor.
Morning.
And, happy May Day.
Yes,
Quick
it
question
is.
for you. The Chief Kemper has said, and he said today, and has said before that crime on the subway, major crimes on the subway, are, depending on how you count the pandemic, potentially at the lowest level in about 15 years. Meanwhile, you have a regime in Washington that seems to be cherry-picking stats, specifically felony assaults and others, and creating the sense that there is a perception that the subway is a wild place. You yourself have mentioned before that this is as much about perception as it is about the stats. All due respect to the Guard, how does putting soldiers who don't have police powers downplay the idea that this is a wild place?
Oh, I don't think that's the perception. I think it shows that we're taking people's safety very seriously. That I will leave no stone unturned. Every power that I have vested in me as the governor of New York, and that includes the ability to deploy the National Guard for a presence that I think has been calming. I think it's driving people's views, and you do all these customer surveys. People are feeling better than they had been before. And so to everyone who, and there were plenty who criticized putting the National Guard in, but also, our enhancement of having police officers on every train. I think other than the law-breaking part of our population, they feel good about that. And that's from people, anecdotally. I don't like to say anecdotes because the press always says, let's go find that one person. I can't find that lady from the street yesterday, but I did get phone calls from people immediately afterward. People saying, I feel a lot better about my mom using the subway. It's a psychological change in how people feel when they see someone in a uniform. They feel they're going to be okay. And is that basic sense of security that I think every human being deserves, and they didn't have it for a long time. And not everybody has it right now. But I'm going to keep pursuing that objective.
All right, we're going to Andrew Siff from WNBC with the great Justin Laub behind the camera today. Andrew.
Quick point and then the question. The quick point is this funding only goes through June. Is that correct? Do you have the $77 million?
This has been breaking news.
Will be leaving his post along with one of his deputies, Alex Wong. The Signal Group chat that conveyed details of the timing and weapons descriptions of a planned attack against the Houthis in Yemen. It included the names or initials of 18 Trump officials. A spokesperson for the National Security Council has confirmed that the message appeared to be authentic. You'll recall that he added a journalist, Jeffrey Goldberg of The Atlantic, to the chat in which the discussion on that attack on the Houthis was made public then by adding Goldberg to the chat. We are awaiting a CBS News special report. We're going to bring that to you as soon as it starts. But this is a big deal. Of course, we can't be sure if this is related to that Signal chat because it's been a couple of weeks since that happened, and in subsequent weeks, Pete Hegseth has also been accused, the defense secretary, of communicating secret or top secret information with people who are not authorized to receive that information. He has denied those allegations. But in this particular case, as we pointed out, it was confirmed that the messages that were revealed to Jeffrey Goldberg on that Signal chat were authentic. And Mike Waltz, unbeknownst to himself, apparently is the one who added Jeffrey Goldberg to that chat, thereby informing the world and potentially the Houthis of the incoming strike. And that was certainly important because, for example, what if Jeffrey Goldberg were more of a chaos agent rather than a journalist, an ethical and moral journalist? He could have immediately released that information. The timing of the attack would have been known by the rebels, and perhaps they could have used the information to inflict pain and harm and death on our troops, on our fighter pilots, on our ships in the region. And he did not obviously release the details that he had been alerted to on that Signal chat until after the attack had happened and it had been confirmed by the Defense Department. So the news out of Washington, the breaking news as we are on the air at this very minute, the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and his deputy Alex Wong are leaving their posts. We indicated earlier that there potentially will be a special report on CBS News here, also on CBS News 24/7 and across all of our stations and affiliates. So you'll want to stick around for that, where there will be a lot more to cover. As for me, that does it for me, folks. Stay right where you are. After the break, Mugo Diwe is live from San Francisco with all the news breaking from coast to coast. This is CBS News 24/7.
CBS Mornings is clearly fun.
Money saving. Dollar Jill's here to tell us what it means for you.
Clearly delish.
So what's on the menu today?
Clearly, CBS Mornings weekdays at 7 on CBS.
What happens when the world's best journalists come together?
Write a prescription for the healing of America.
We're retired and this is our paradise.
Now it's gone.
You get the stories of America every night. You get the all-new CBS Evening News every weeknight.
This is a CBS News special report. I'm Tony DeCopel in New York, and we are coming on because sources tell CBS News that President Trump has fired his national security advisor, Michael Waltz. This happened just a short time ago. You, of course, remember that name because it was Waltz who started a Signal group chat in March. This is a non-government approved app called Signal, and that chat included operational plans for U.S. strikes on Yemen. In that chat, 18 other participants, Vice President J.D. Vance, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and very notably, Atlantic Magazine editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg. We're going to go now to CBS News senior White House reporter Jennifer Jacobs. This is her reporting. She's at the White House for us. She's been covering it. Jennifer, a month ago, this did not seem to be in the works, and now here it is. What do we know?
Right. What I'm told is that both the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and his deputy Alex Wong will be leaving their jobs, and it could happen as soon as today. I'm told that the president's chief of staff, Susie Wiles, is handling some of these conversations today. It's not yet clear exactly why. We know that the Signal situation did happen. The president wasn't happy with that originally, partly because he had questions about why his national security advisor had the phone number of a reporter in his cell phone. It was a reporter that the president doesn't particularly like or trust. So that was the initial cause of the president's angst over this. There have also been criticisms from conservative outlets, from conservative influencers about who Mike Waltz put on his national security team. Remember, we reported a few weeks ago that some people had been pushed out of the National Security Council and others were supposed to have been ousted. There's been some discussions about that and some criticisms about that, but we just don't know exactly what the president's thinking is on this or why he is leaving or being pushed out today, but we do know that that decision has been made.
Today is the day. Jennifer Jacobs, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Also in Washington for us is Face the Nation moderator and chief foreign affairs correspondent Margaret Brennan, who joins us now. Margaret, Mike Waltz, a 27-year veteran of the U.S. Army, former Green Beret, 4 Bronze Stars, 2 for Valor. He had qualifications for this job, unlike some other Trump appointees, and now he's out. Why now? What do we know?
Well, it is interesting in this reporting by Jennifer Jacobs and our Arden Farhi to establish that he will be on his way out, along with his deputy, Alex Wong, another individual with really solid, traditionally conservative credentials, particularly when it comes to the national security space, with a history working specifically on the issue of North Korea. In Alex Wong's case, he is the deputy. He was accused in fairly racist terms of certain lack of loyalty, some really shocking allegations by conservative commentators that you heard Jennifer Jacobs make reference to there. Mike Waltz, as you just said, a Green Beret who served in conservative White Houses in the past, who worked for Dick Cheney, who served in Congress, who was serving this country in uniform prior to that, also viewed as having stellar conservative credentials. And there has been a divide between those who are conservative in their view as to how to handle Iran and its developing nuclear program in particular, from those who want to go with this kind of isolationist, non-interventionist attempt at diplomacy, which looks a lot like reviving that Obama-era nuclear deal from back in 2015. And that contingent is being led right now by President Trump's ally, Steve Witkoff, his longtime personal friend. And that personal friend is also at the tip of the spear when it comes to all active diplomacy right now, when it comes to Russia and Ukraine, when it comes to Iran, when it comes to Gaza. He also does not have that background in intelligence, military, or national security space. And that has been the point of criticism from some, and that divide got personal. We have been hearing about that in particular when it comes to this policy. So while Jennifer laid out Signalgate, so to speak, was the beginning of a level of distrust here, the president has maintained no one did anything wrong. So that cannot be the grounds for a dismissal. My understanding is that it is actually going to some policy divides and some frustration on a personal level with Waltz and Wong, but we'll be following this developing story.
Super interesting. It's a window into how this White House operates, the security and the policy debates going on within it. And I wonder, Margaret, in our final moments here, do we have a sense of who a replacement could be? Are there a top 3 names, perhaps, that are on people's lips this morning?
I'm searching for those myself, Tony. One name that has been floated was the man I just mentioned, former real estate developer Steve Witkoff. However, when I called allies of Witkoff to say, does he want this job, the initial read was no. He doesn't want to run an interagency process. That is what the National Security Advisor does, helps to sort of curate, collate, and bring decisions to the president.